And continuing my roundup of the contents of this new book, The New Viticulture, I'm going to just run through the last set of chapters. So just talked about trunk diseases, major threat to viticulture, really interesting work, trying to understand the likes of Esker and other trunk diseases that are causing a lot of problems in vineyards around the world. Then the chapter after that is an important one. It's called Weed Control, Tillage and Regenerative Viticulture. And the idea here is to explore this new concept of regenerative viticulture, which is basically good viticulture, but understanding the vineyard as an agro-ecosystem where it's not just the vines planted in the soil, it's the whole life of the vineyard, and that's not just above ground but below ground as well. And one of the big aspects facing anyone who's running a vineyard is how to control weeds. Obviously weeds are things growing in the vineyard, which is a good thing, but sometimes you need to shift the balance back in favour of the vines a little bit. So tillage, herbicide, different ways of managing that ground cover, and that's discussed at great length in this chapter. A very important chapter, this one, because regenerative viticulture is such an important topic. Then we look at water, irrigation and drought resistance. Many of the world's vineyards are grown in climates that we describe as Mediterranean, where there's very little rain during the growing season, and then in the autumn and the winter you get the rain, replenishes ground reserves, and then you get these long dry spells. Now across the world we've got climate chaos, so we're getting instances of droughts. It's increasing a great deal. So one of the areas of concern at the moment is looking to produce vineyards that are more resilient in the face of drought. So there's a lot of work there looking at what is actually happening with the vines when they're facing drought and how to counter that. And then we look at ice, the science of frost, freezing and hail, very important topics for viticulture, and some interesting work there, looking at the science behind frost events, freezing events and hail, and growing vines in very cold climates where winter lows can be so low that they can kill the vines. Then we look at light and heat, the power of the sun, and that's a chapter I think that's quite important, because obviously light is really important for viticulture, because vines are plants and plants use light for photosynthesis, and also there's other physiological responses to light that happen in vineyards that are discussed in this chapter. And heat obviously is a very important topic as well. Climate as discussed earlier in the book, but we revisit the whole topic of climate, and especially heat spikes and the effect of these on viticulture. And then finally we have a chapter which is titled Viticultural Case Studies. Now there's case studies all through the book, and the idea here is to kind of like bring out some case studies that kind of what's happening around the world in terms of viticulture, looking at how people are farming differently, how they're adapting to their place. And this kind of I think it's very important context, because there's no recipe for viticulture. It has to be locally adapted. It has to be the intelligent application of the knowledge that we have, but also not just the science, but also the experience of people working in those places for a long time. So there you go, that's the book, The New Viticulture. It's out now. There are 2 editions. This is the one with all the colour pictures. There's also a cheaper student edition that has no pictures in it at all, and it's quite a bit shorter. It's got the same words but no pictures, and it's a little bit denser in terms of the typography. So that's the idea there, is to get this book into the hands of as many people as possible. Thank you for watching.